Hey y'all, how we doing? Shout out to Bear Nation for tuning in for another episode of the Bear Necessities of Entrepreneurship, a podcast for the entrepreneur-minded, created by entrepreneurs, discussing the real stories that give you the tools to overcome challenges and stay true to your real self. As always, I want to give a shout out to our partners over at Fin. Fin is a social good platform that creates employee engagement and builds culture. We've teamed up with Fin to give back to the communities that we serve. For every episode, we will be donating $10 to the cause of choosing by our guest in the Fin platform. Enjoy today's episode. Hey y'all, how we doing? Shout out to Bear Nation for tuning in. I am excited once again for another fantastic episode of the Bear Necessities of Entrepreneurship, a podcast for the entrepreneur-minded, created by entrepreneurs, discussing the real stories that give you the tools to overcome challenges and stay true to your real self. First, as always, want to give a shout out to our partners over at Fin. Fin is a social good platform that creates employee engagement and builds culture. We have teamed up with Fin to give back to the communities we serve. For every episode of the Bear Necessities podcast, we will be donating $10 to the cause of the choosing of our guest by using the Fin platform. So today it is my honor to introduce our guest, Iris Skrami. Iris is the co-founder and CEO of Renoon, empowering sustainable lifestyles and values when shopping fashion. She has been recognized by Forbes Under 30 and raised $1 million in less than a year from founding the startup. Iris, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rob. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So I'm going to jump into this because I love that short little bio. You know, Forbes Under 30, raising $1 million in less than a year. That's wild, yeah. And we're going to get into that. But
yeah, what crazy year?
I can imagine. So Renoon, it's empowering sustainable lifestyles and values in shopping. Tell us, what sparked this idea of Renoon? And tell me a little bit about what you're building and why.
Yeah, so basically, Rob, 2 years ago, something super simple, like trying to find a dress online, basically led me to spend a month and a half searching online. Every day I was coming back from home in the evenings, and going on my Google, and indeed putting down keywords and trying to figure out what is it that I needed to indeed look for, because I wanted this dress to be sustainable. And yeah, basically I really noticed how difficult it is with such a simple problem of, I'm a person, I know the impact that fashion has in the environment and in everything around us, and I want to do good. And how do I merge my personal values with actual buying behavior? And this such simple thing actually led me to something so complex that I thought, well, there's nothing out there to solve this. And some months went in, and literally then I started to really build it up.
I love that. So something as simple as finding, if I'm not mistaken from our conversations before, and you might even have this on your LinkedIn, it was a cocktail dress for the holiday season, yeah. Right? And exactly. And then, thinking about wanting a dress that's sustainable and really finding and tying the loops of your passions and your background. So tell us a little bit about your background. So before starting Renoon and having this issue of this dress for the cocktail dress for holiday, you worked at, if I'm not mistaken, Nike, and had some really amazing stops along the way. So tell me a little about your background and how you got to being an entrepreneur, and what were some of those stops that you had before?
Yeah, so I really started everything in my life also around business, and I was really passionate about it. So I'm actually Italian. I was born and raised in Milan and did different, in my life, different experiences abroad that also led me to discover new things. Mm-hmm. One major thing that I discovered through this was also a yoga, a new lifestyle, and I literally had started to make changes in my personal lifestyle first, but also during literally seeing how the world was around me, I was totally fascinated by two things. One was a case study that I remember about a business, merging social issues with actually doing business. So doing business but together with doing good. Mm-hmm. And another thing was actually looking at startups and solutions. And so I remember coming back to my dad that year and saying, hey, Dad, I want to become the chief sustainability officer of a big corporate. But then I looked at what was out there for me, and I realized that I'm sort of a person that it's not really about looking at the problems and studying them, but mostly like finding solutions to them. So that's why I got so passionate about startups and technology. And fashion has been one of the industries that really has literally like stole my attention. But I was born and raised in Milan again, so probably was the city or just the industry in itself.
You can't be in Milan. Having lived 2 years in Milan, you can't live in Milan without just like, there's an energy and a breath of Milan that exudes, elegance. And it's not just in fashion too, it's in design. And it's something that you feel every day. So I get it 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's the creativity and the, that feeling of loving life that really like takes you in. And so, yeah, it was really literally my passion to go to big global brands. And that's what I did. So I moved to the Netherlands to work at Nike first. So there I was scouting for startups. Actually, we were looking at solutions, more like also scale ups or mid-sized companies that would indeed solve problems and make us smoother into our operations and everything around the business. And then I moved actually to PVH, which is the mother company of Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein, to basically build a startup within the multinational. So we brought this concept of the store of the future, which we brought up as a team and rolled out in more than 100 stores in the US, Europe, and Asia in less than a year. So it was also a really crazy time, but also passed onto me a lot of the work ethics, a little bit like the Dutch way to do the business, but also a bit the American way to approach life as well. Yeah.
Love that. So having worked at Nike and PVH and kind of working in some of these bigger organizations, what were some of the things that you learned that were like, this is why I want to like that startup idea, right? So startups have always been in the back of your mind, but you decided to achieve sustainability of these big companies. What are some of those things between Nike and PVH where it's like, I want to start my own business because of this? Was there anything or any moment where you're like, this is exactly why I want to get out of big corporate and start a business? Was there any of that moment for you?
Actually, in a way, yes and no. I mean, working in a corporate always has its ups and downs. And of course, like in a way, when I was building a startup within the multinational, I really felt sometimes we were, constrained or moving so slow because of politics and the ways things also were working. Although PVH is very agile in that way and very, let's say also flat organization in that way. But literally to me, it was the moment in which I said, okay, I need to start this. It was because it was merging all of my passions, which are fashion, technology, sustainability, all together. And I had this burning problem, and I thought, well, first of all, I looked at it and I said, okay, I'm not the only one having this problem. Probably now we're a niche of people, but it's going to grow in the future. And we need to be ready to satisfy and to actually make this connection. And at the same time, I looked at the solutions that were out there and I couldn't find anything. And so I was literally like, if I'm not doing this, then who will? And so, I felt like this connection to actually do it myself. I never really planned in my life to become an entrepreneur. I don't come from an entrepreneurial family. I don't have anyone around me that would, be that also role model that would make me say, I want to become an entrepreneur, but it just sort of happened. Yeah.
So just kind of falling into it a little bit by seeing a opportunity and a niche that you realized was going to grow. Thinking about the millennial mindset, thinking about Gen Z, thinking about our future, right? And where fashion
Exactly.
can and should go. And I mean, and I could be wrong on this, but I'm being told by very credible sources in my life that the 90s are a bit back, right? We kind of recycle fashion. And so as we see that happening, and when that recycle happens, right, there's an inherent difference and change through the years, but we see these different, things come back around. And so this is where the idea of, well, how do we make this more sustainable so we can, blend of new and old and, vintage and kind of rebuilding. So I love this idea of, seeing a problem and kind of leaning into it from starting in chief sustainability into entrepreneurship. So it's such a great story.
Yeah.
Prior to going to the Netherlands to work, you had studied abroad, right? So you'd studied, where all did you study? So you had like 4 or 5 stops to study across Europe. So, obviously Italy being from there. Where else did you study while you're abroad?
Germany, France, and Spain.
Germany, France, and Spain. Amazing. And how did those experiences, looking at German, we're thinking fashion, right? There's German fashion, France, obviously Paris fashion, Spain. How did those experiences and living in those countries help shape you? And then obviously the Netherlands, to where you are, to think about fashion at scale.
Yeah, I have to say that I think probably in the Netherlands was the most impactful experience. Definitely, having international experiences also before shaped a little bit the initial, path. I mean, I found out more the sustainability also lifestyle and additional lifestyle ways of living through those initial experiences. And definitely also, I have to say that the Netherlands also really struck me a lot for the way they do business here. Everything is very direct, and it's like you don't waste time, right? So you just get to it very quickly. And I feel like that was, indeed, the Netherlands was the most impactful experience. Yeah, definitely.
I love that. I get it, having lived 2 years in Italy, and, people always ask me about my time abroad, and I was like, look, I loved living in Milan. It was one of the best experiences, like La Dolce Vita, right? Like I loved that, like, sweet life. And it was like 2 years of borrowed time, but it also was something that was so impactful, and having that experience and living in other countries and seeing the way other countries do business, and just the culture allowed me, for my own entrepreneurial journey, to take so much in and learn and grow. So I love hearing, and I got to spend a little time in Amsterdam. I actually did a Northern European vacation, and I actually proposed to my wife in the Netherlands, just outside of Amsterdam, in Haarlem. We were in Amsterdam actually during Pride weekend. So, they had amazing, on the canals, the boats. It was one of the most fun weekends, and we just randomly happened to pick that weekend to be in Amsterdam. And so I knew that I wanted to propose. I was like, I want to get out of Amsterdam. There's too much craziness going on. And so I was like Googling little towns, and like Haarlem was like, a short train ride away. It was beautiful little town. I went and biked and then proposed to my wife in the Netherlands. So I have a special kind of connection to Amsterdam and to a Netherlands trip. So I want to,
That's super cool.
it was fun. I loved my 2 years abroad. So I want to come back to this. So, you studied abroad, then you went to Nike, then to PVH, and then you started Renoon. And as I introduced you to the show here, I talked a little bit, shared a little bit about being recognized as a Forbes Under 30 and raising $1 million in less than a year from founding. So tell me about, you told us the story about the dress, and you founded the company. So what happened once you founded the company? Walk us through that first year and how you went about raising $1 million and how you got to be a Forbes Under 30, which is an amazing accomplishment. So walk me through that first year of business.
Yeah, definitely. Everything happened really quite fast from the moment that we founded the company. And I mean, because there were some months before that in which I literally also was understanding, first of all, what was happening and what was my problem. Were there any other people that also had this problem. I wasn't the only one. So that was definitely the first check. Second of all, also understanding and creating a bit more, digging really deeper into what would be the future of fashion online, and how it would move also in terms of sustainability and what sustainability actually means, and who could I do this with. So basically those were a lot of questions that I asked myself, and I definitely I started talking to some colleagues, friends, and that's where I found the first co-founder. He was actually working at PVH together with me, and so we started to really dig deep into this problem. He's also Italian, so we used actually our Italian roots to go also a little bit back to Italy and visit also factories, look into the supply chain. Discovering even deeper. We both knew, because also working for the fashion industry, and it's already something that everybody knows more or less now, especially in the fashion industry. And also it's this information also spreading around. Fashion is one of the most polluting industries out there. So if you think about it, it goes from agriculture to actually transportation, and it's more polluting than transportation and aviation combined as an industry, so which is crazy. And so we literally went to all the people in Italy that we could find a connection to. So we went to the cotton and linen district, to the recycled nylon one, to the denim manufacturers, to really also dig into people who have 30 years experience in this industry, to where they were seeing, sustainability going forward, not only from a consumer perspective, but also from literally the offering, the supply of fashion. And so we created our vision to that is really looking into, so first of all, we started with also thinking, okay, sustainability. What is sustainability? This big, sort of quest that we were going about. And until we realized, also talking a lot with consumers, that's actually, there's not one way to do sustainability. So there's multiple ways, and that we needed to basically build a platform that would allow people to express themselves and then find a match with the products and the brands that really help them fulfill this desire that they have. So that was really the first, a major accomplishment that we had. Of course, in the meantime, also we were looking for other co-founders. We soon realized that we were building a data company that was a bit hidden into sustainability and fashion. And so we found soon enough our CTO, also very randomly. It was very fun to, meet him, because for a while I went into, here in Amsterdam, there's actually a lot of meetups for founders or people that are into tech and startups. And I went for a while into some of these meetups. And in the end, I found a CTO in my building. So he was actually one day just randomly talking. He said, so yeah, I do data scraping and API. And I was like, you do what? And he's passionate about sustainability too. So immediately when we presented to him the project, what we wanted to build, he was literally, let's do this. And so we started building. And then we also had a fourth co-founder come and join us. And that was really when we had all the things in our hands to really drop everything we were doing and then start the company. And then that's when really things started to take a whole other speed.
Yeah.
Again, to us, I think the most important thing that I actually did as a founder was to talk to people about what I wanted to build. And although probably the first people I talked to, they were looking at me with open eyes and saying, what does she want to do? I don't get it. Or, it sounds a little bit, not something that, because also you have to also realize that even a year ago, for some people, talking about sustainable fashion was something completely new.
Yeah.
And so, but it was great to already starting bringing in people that have a connection also as business angels. Yeah. And so that was really also the moment that really allowed us to then go really fast in that sense. So I I looked at, okay, so what would I need to do? And to me, like, this was completely new. So I had no clue on how to raise funding and how that actually also worked. I had honestly like no clue. Things like valuation, rounds, they were something.
Go ahead. Keep going.
They were something completely new to me. And so when I realized, okay, that having business angels at the beginning to be part of this, it would have been a second step, the most important second step that would happen. I literally started immediately. So I reached out to one of the most known, actually, she's very well known business angel in the fashion and luxury space, and in Italy. And so I immediately talked to her about this. And so she basically saw me going from just an idea that I had in mind to actually having some first investments from family and friends, and then basically building a very crappy but working prototype, and then having the team really be engaged with it, having partners coming on board, etc. And so through that, we basically then hit it off and went to the next step.
So I want to stop right there and kind of make a really interesting point that people who listen to this show hear me say all the time. They're probably like, Rob, you don't need to say this anymore. But especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, you need to speak with intentionality. Intentionally tell people what you're doing and why. And you're going to have people think that you're crazy all the time, but speak with intentionality, because when you do that, you find random people like how you met your CTO in your building at a time when you needed just that, and they have those same passions. So I think a key lesson that you just shared is speak with intentionality. And then another thing that I really found interesting that you did is that you had this idea to build something, and the first thing y'all did was use those connections. You used your network and said, hey, we're going to go talk to all these different companies and look at the supply chain and go to Denim and go here and talk and have these questions and learn. Because, when I first heard about sustainability in fashion was probably 3 years ago, I first started hearing it was actually from a friend of mine out of Milan. That I met in New York City, and started to look at, this idea of what sustainability in fashion means. And at that point, I know that not many people were talking about it. No one had really heard about it. Why change what's worked for so long? So I love how, as you've seen this niche, you build into it, you start talking with intention, which allowed you to connect with so many people. So, you talked to some of these angels and started raising, so you're pre-seed. Right. We got $1 million in fundraising. So what was the process like for you in fundraising? Was it just really asking and did you create a process? Did you have, how did you go about okay, we need to raise some funds because you're building an app and you need to build this. So tell me a little bit about what else did you do to raise funds in that process?
Yeah. So we did, it's not like one thing that you go and do about. And again, also to point it out is that as well, especially that's true in 2021. And probably, so when we incorporated after a couple of weeks, actually COVID hit. And because of the digital as well, I think it's now gotten easier and easier to reach out to people, even if you don't have any connections, just the LinkedIn connections, maybe some mutual ones, those help. So you just write to people and you have something sharp and need to say to them, they're going to answer to you. And also most of the time they're free to chat, especially indeed if you're going there with something interesting. And so to us, it was indeed a series of things that I did. So one thing that we soon realized that, okay, we needed to have also structure for ourselves. So we went through acceleration programs. So we got inside, started boot camp, which is Dutch, but we did the Italian one. And we also went through, I decided to do this because it was really important to me. And that's an acceleration program actually in Vienna, which is called Female Founders. And that's also very specific for female founders. So I took a lot of opportunities to also pitch, go out there, talk to different people. And through these different acceleration programs, actually, some of the mentors that really came along the way, they actually ended up, being part of the round of funding. So because they really got into the project and into everything that we were building, and so they saw us, grow literally like in weeks. And so, yeah.
That's amazing. And those in my network who know me know that I love accelerators. I work for about 12 different accelerators. When I was in Milan, I was employee number 6 at a startup that was a year old. I helped them grow and scale, raise funds. I helped them go through an accelerator program in New York City. And so there's so much value in going through an accelerator program. And I mean, it's just that you accelerate. You hit so much and so fast, but the value of the network, right? And just to take a step back, how Iris and I met was actually through a network called Nova Talent. And a former employee of mine from a company that I run called Half Day Group had connected with Iris and said, hey, Rob, you should meet Iris and learn a little bit more of her story. I think the two of you would have a great conversation. And introduced, and we did. We had a great conversation, made a few introductions to a podcast and another podcast and a couple other things. And there's this value of network. So talk about that a little bit. So you went through these 2 acceleration programs. You're a part of Nova Talent. You're also a member for the Leaders for Climate Action. How are you using these networks for growth? You talked about mentors, funding, business relationships. Tell me about, what your plan is or how you've gone about building your network and how you plan on leveraging that moving forward.
Yeah, Rob. So it was literally like you said, also through actually Nova, I got one of the largest tickets inside the round of funding. Just literally like going one night, to a dinner and just having a talk with someone. Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes it's not like, direct, but you just talk to someone and then they introduce you to somebody else because it's interesting what you said. And then maybe they even introduce you to somebody else and that person actually ends up to being like the right person for you. So I think it's really, really important to build a network. It was crucial for what I did and how fast also it can literally go. Now, a part of the network also is happening through social media, right? Like Clubhouse, those things are like, I would say never estimate really the power of it, the power of going to a dinner, having that extra chat with someone because, it's through connections. And when you want to do something and you go out there and you tell the world that you want to do it, it's like sort of like the world's kind of sort of, really creates this full thing that says, okay, like, let's do it for you.
Right.
So,
right. The power
that was funny. But it really worked. Yeah.
Well, I think, I was going to say, we talk, about this, when entrepreneurship happens, right? There's this, you get lucky to get funding or lucky, to have met that person and those that really, 1 out of every 10, gets truly lucky. And we all get lucky at some point in our lives, but luck really is where preparation meets opportunity, right? And in that, what I mean by that is that when you do things with intention and you go to those dinners, you join these groups, you get introduced to people, talk to people about what you're doing and why, that intentionality is what makes people interested, and they share and make those intros. And like, for you to say one of your biggest tickets in your round of fundraising was through the Nova Talent Group, it's amazing because, you did something, even sometimes when you don't want to, you put yourself out there with intentionality and authenticity. And you've mentioned on a couple key core values that I always talk about, which is curiosity, intentionality, authenticity, attitude, and effort. With those 5 things, a lot of great things happen, right? Because you're learning, you're building, you're being real, and you're putting good out. And when you do that, good comes back in, and you're just like a living example of that. So it's been a whirlwind year. You incorporate, COVID hits, you're building this online, this global network. We're living a hyper-connected, millennials and Gen Z, we're hyper-connected. Clubhouse, LinkedIn, groups, Twitter, Instagram, all the different socials and how you go about building. But I want to talk about, some of the, all these things that you've been creating are amazing, and it's been just a whirlwind year, COVID on top of it, to talk about sustainability. I want to transition. So you're building an app, building a platform. What are some of the challenges that you're facing right now as you look at second half of 2021? You've had this whirlwind year. You've gotten some investment. You've built a team. What are some of the things that are challenging you right now in your business?
Yeah. So for us, we just literally are in that moment in which we started to build the initial team. And so we just literally passed that initial moment where I think, Rob, when we talked the last time, we were I was literally starting this process. It was really, really challenging. I think also when as a founder, you also really need to start to build your initial team, and you have to kind of balance, between getting the right people and getting things done. And so, for example, we got a lot of also because of that, freelancers and people that could actually also tapping into that so that we could actually build the right team from the start. And so now to us, it's we're in that very special moment in time where we've built now our product, and we have started to really build the product. And so what Renoon does, because we do, as I was saying before, it's data, it's a data company. We are aggregating products from multiple websites. So we work with brands, multi-brand retailers, secondhand platforms. And so we're really giving sense to all of that. So it's that product building that it's really challenging in the sense that it's still a double-sided marketplace where from one side we have the brands that was our major challenge at the beginning. So that's where we focus. And now we have actually too many brands coming on board. And so we need to sort of juggle that and make sure that they also get the value out of it. And on the other side, now we have users. So now it's really, and it's a consumer facing app. So it's building that community and also building it in a way that we can already show traction for our next round, but in a way that it also feels authentic. And actually, that's also what I, as a founder, want to do right now, because I feel it's so important to bring early adopter, but also grow community that it's really authentic. And in a way that can actually help us as founders and as a team build the product that it's the correct product for the users that we're bringing in. So that's a little bit always finding the balance between two things that you want to do at the same time. And a lot of opportunities also coming to us recently that we also have started to really start to be able to say no and focus on the things that we really need to do to get to the next step.
Yeah. And so, we've been talking a little bit earlier that the stage that you're in is you're looking at, you've got quite a bit of brands coming on, almost more than you can handle at this point. You're building that double-sided, the community, right? The dual-sided marketplace, the community, and building traction and users in an authentic way. You're using all my favorite words: intentionality, authenticity, curiosity. And so where that puts us in is this place of that product market fit and really finding what that early growth and product market fit looks like. And so, what are some of the things?
I don't want to say that word because it's very scary. Product market fit, because it's you don't know what it means, right? Because the next question is what does it mean? Nobody knows.
Well, and so I love it because it is a little bit scary, but it's the $1 million question, right? The whole idea behind the bare necessities of entrepreneurship is that we want to uncover these things of let's get rid of the scary, right? Product market fit means a lot to many people, and depending on the brand, the company you're trying to build, and how you're trying to build it, only you can define what product market fit looks like, you and the customers, right? And in a dual-sided marketplace, it's you, the customers, and the brands. And so that product market fit is something that's always going to be challenging, but also it's the most rewarding thing. It's the piece that you lean into and you look at it. And I love this idea of building this amazing community. And, you and I have talked about this before, but there's a book that I just finished that I thought was amazing called The Hype Handbook by Michael Sheen. And so what he talks about is he takes 12 stories of propagandists and those that like create a lot of hype and cult leaders and whatnot. And when we normally think about hype, we think of it in a negative way, for propaganda, for cult leaders to brainwash you. But if we actually take that back and look at the genius behind it of creating hype for ourselves. And so he goes through and talks about how do we use this for good. It was recommended to me by a friend of a friend. And so what I loved about the Hype Handbook is that we can create our own hype, right? It's okay for us to talk and build authentically. It's okay for us to reach out and use some of these strategies for good. And when we do that, we create authentic and intentional communities. So, I know that that's a kind of scary word, but I love that you're leaning into it. I love that you're having the conversations the same way you leaned into building the brand, starting Renoon, asking for investment is the same way that you're going to go attack this challenge and hit that early growth. Because, from what you and I have talked about, there's some awesome things coming up in your roadmap. And for y'all to be able to, at that point where you're starting to say no to things, shows that you're hitting market viability. And this is something people want and need and are excited about. How that looks, this is still new. And that's the beauty behind it. So I know you don't like to use the word, but I'm gonna call that out and put that out there, because I think it's really important to speak those challenges, right? Because again, let's put intentionality out there. This is how we're going to overcome those challenges. And I mean,
true.
You're well on your way to doing that and hitting growth and scaling, as you just said, with
the
opportunities that are coming up.
So, product market fit.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit, how big is the team right now?
So now currently we're 7 people. That it's like four co-founders, and we're hiring a couple more, and also we're working with some freelancers. But
that's awesome. So it's a team of 7, and tell me about this. So you've got some mentors. You've been leveraging this. How do you leverage your mentors and your network for future growth? So what are some of the things that you're leveraging right now, or talking about with mentors to grow the business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have some of these mentors also that follow us along the journey, but especially the new also investors, angel investors. So, for example, definitely the ex-CTO of Yux Net-a-Porter, or the ex-CIO of Gucci, or we also have a couple of entrepreneurs that have come on board, and it's really about. Indeed, you said a really nice word, which is leveraging, and also making sure that you get also the most out of it, because it's also like people normally are also there for you and open to help you. It's also, to me, it was, especially the beginning, something that I had to learn, and probably I'm still learning, how to make the best of the time that I also have with them. And so how we do it is that with some of them, actually I have even very, very recurring times where we speak and we share things. I share basically a lot of things that come up in my week. And I always have someone, that I can have a great idea from. And I can also, have a view that it's outside of my day-to-day, very focused sometimes. And, you don't get to see, maybe sometimes you just lose like a little bit like the big picture or where you want it to go, because you're so focused on the actual thing that you need to get done, or the maybe a smaller goal in front of you. And so it's great to have these people that actually know where you're going to, and they can understand where you're going to. So that's really important also, who you bring on board, because you got to have people that do get it and do share not maybe the same, but a very similar vision of what you have. And that can also challenge yours and challenge the things that you're going to do along the way. And that doesn't mean that you have to take literally like what they say. They also don't expect you to take whatever they say in a literal way, but to use that to help you guide you along the way. So, see things that you probably hadn't considered before.
Yeah, I love that. And that's why it's so important to have mentors and or coaches, both within the industry, from outside the industry, and kind of fringe industries, because you want people to be able to snowball ideas off of, talk about. Sometimes you just need people to listen. So you can get it out of here and stop letting it take up negative brain space, right, in your head, and just and get it out. So, I love the fact that you leverage those mentorship opportunities. You're obviously in Nova Talent, which is all about creating connections and finding people that can help scale or talk to and build these things. One of the things I'm doing with Nova is I'm a mentor for amazing people in the group, and I get to talk with them every couple weeks about their growth and scalability. So to be a part of that, to leverage that, to use that to challenge you. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Just because you're reaching out to somebody as a mentor or coach doesn't mean you have to listen to everything they say. If we listen to what everybody had to say about us, we'd never get anything done. Take what you think is most important, put that into practice and action. But listen, evaluate, and take it with a grain of salt, because no one's in it the way you are day to day. So I think it's such a key lesson to bring out of the value of mentorship, the value of leveraging those relationships, right? I mean, we've talked about from the beginning to the end of this, the power of your network. As millennials and Gen Z and entrepreneurs, as we look at the future, we have to leverage our network well and act with intention and ask for what we want, because it comes back. So I have a question as we look towards the second half of the year, as you're going into potentially another round of fundraising in the near future. What are some of the things you're most excited about for the future of Renoon? Is there anything, without giving too much away of what's going on in the product roadmap or whatnot, what are some of the things that you're really excited about as we look to the second half of 2021 and the future of Renoon?
Yeah. So in a short term, so for this year, an exciting feature actually that we're launching this week, literally, it's the open profiles. So basically, it's a way that this is like the way we call it internally, but it's like advocates that also we can show the community within the app of people that can actually showcase what is that they mostly value, because we have a different ways users can actually express their values in 5 areas of impact, the list of their brands, and because that was actually literally something I had in my mind for so long, like how can actually a product like Renoon, how could we give voices to also community of people that want to make a change? And so I'm really, really excited for this to really come out, because I'm so curious to where it's going to go. I think it's going to be so powerful, but let's see how the community will react to it and what's going to happen. But yeah, I'm really excited about it, because it's what I've been saying all this time. I feel like, in the fashion industry as well, there has been innovation going on, and scientists, innovators working on getting solutions out there. It's just like we need also people distributing it, using it, and getting it out there. And I feel like, the community feeling, it's something that I was really looking forward to introduce and to get inside the whole formula of the app that we just literally started with that. And I'm really looking forward to it. And for the long term, it's all this insights that we're gathering. And again, Rob, my ideal future, really what I want to build with Renoon is bridging this gap between an industry that really wants, in some ways, wants to do it better, and the other way, consumers, because it literally takes two people to do something. And this is also really true when it comes to sustainability and fashion. We need consumers to make better choices. We need brands to see that consumers want that and to change and to fuel this transformation. And the more we can bridge this gap in the future with actually tangible data, with ways that we can also provide the industry with the tools to make this transformation, then it's when our job will be done.
I love that. And, I don't think your job will ever truly be done because as you make these changes, more changes will come and sustainability will continue to grow.
Exactly.
But I love this idea of, we talk about the voice of the customer all the time. And what we're doing is we're trying to give a more of an unbiased voice to the customer and having people be able to advocate and talk. And so for those listening to this episode, new feature will have already been out by the time this episode is released. So when you see it, go sign up and take a look and try it out. I love this idea of giving your community a voice to talk about causes that they care about or things that they want to see. Mm-hmm. But in the long term is the education piece, educating brands on what consumers really want and educating consumers on how to make better decisions. How do we evaluate? Mm-hmm. Similar to your process, you wanted a cocktail dress for the holiday season and you wanted it to be sustainable and you did a ton of research to find it took forever to be able to be thinking like that. And how do we leverage tools to shorten that timeline to buy local or buy sustainable or, really tie all these things together. So giving that platform and really what I think is shrinking the gap between a business that is amazing and wants to innovate, but it's been around for so long that maybe needs to come back and squeeze down a little bit to, where does the fashion industry setting the trend to what the consumers want to being a mm-hmm. part of the trend setting, and really squeezing that down, I think is going to be amazing. Yeah. And so really excited about the future of Renoon, and what you're building, why you're building it, how we're going to get there, and to follow along. So super exciting. As you may or may not know, and for those that listen to this episode, at the end of every episode, we have 5 questions that we like to ask our guests, and kind of leaving with some tidbits of knowledge that have helped you on your entrepreneurial journey to pass on. So the first question, it is, what advice would you give Gen Z or millennial or anybody entrepreneur minded that wants to start a business right now?
Definitely start a company around a problem that you're passionate about and you can't stop thinking about every day.
I love that. So if it's something that you continually think about and it's something that you can't stop, you've had talk to others and start it, right? Build, whether that's building right away or building on the side, build.
Mm-hmm.
What is your superpower?
I think I'm a natural builder, and I love to create and build stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've seen that creator, that builder in you, grow from being chief sustainability officer goal to working at Nike, PVH, into saying, you know what, let's start a company. Let's be crazy, team up with, a bunch of other folks and build a really cool company. Yeah. Which, being a natural builder and creator has led you to be, Forbes under 30 and have an amazing year with the business. Yeah. So what is one book, resource, or show that you recommend right now for somebody who's entrepreneur minded?
I would definitely have to say Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari. It has been literally a mind changer for me, and I think for everyone, especially for those people that that's really important, that if you don't just want to build a company, but also you want to think of leaving something behind you, because literally this book opens up your mind to questioning everything. So I just love it. I definitely recommend it.
Yeah. Well, I love that too. And it's, I haven't read the whole thing. I started it, put it down, picked it back up, and have never actually finished it. So I need to finish it. But one of the things that I love that you mentioned in this book is around leaving a mark, right? Making an impact, right? What is your legacy that you want to leave?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it literally makes you rethink everything. So why is it that we have money? Why is it that we call things like this? And why things work as they do? So you really start thinking of, it's like everything that we've built around us is also a bit sometimes like a construct of how we decided to build things. So we always have the power to change them and do them in another way.
Yeah. So what is the lasting message that you want listeners to take away from this episode?
Yeah, so it's definitely a marathon. So bring only the bare necessities.
I love that, right? I love that. Get started. The bare necessities is all about get started. You don't need a lot to get started. You need an idea, you need a passion, and you need a plan. Go start, right? Put good out and then let good improve. Don't try to make perfect. Let it improve, grow it, build it, iterate. Listen to what the market has to say. Don't try to tell the market what you want. Listen, iterate. So I love that it's a marathon, and understand you're going to have challenges that you overcome, right? You know, we talked about your challenge and the scary word of product market fit. When we need to lean into that kind of things. We need to lean into challenges because that's how we overcome them. So I love that. You know, it is. I love being able to talk to you. Also, you know, talking pre-show and getting to meet you before. You know, having the Milan connection, having lived in Milan for a couple of years and traveling, and so I'm really excited and appreciative of you being on the pod and growing and sharing so much with us. Where can the listeners find you at? Where should they be looking for you to follow along with your journey and Renoon's journey as we move forward and checking out the new product features?
Yeah, so definitely for a bit of like behind the scenes on my Instagram at it is Skrami, and also on Renoon's app where I'm advocating for what I value. So I actually also created an open profile for myself. Love that.
So we will make sure to link those in the show notes so that you can follow along and get that behind the scenes look. Definitely go check out Renoon, build an open profile if you get a second. Listen and see what things are advocating about and have your voice heard about sustainable fashion. Ines, thank you so much for being a part of it today. For all those out in Bear Nation listening, and go check out Ines, check out Renoon. Go have your voice heard, and we will catch you all on the next episode. Thank you so much, Elias, for being a part of it.
Thank you for having me.
Bear Nation, once again, thank you for listening to the Bare Necessities of Entrepreneurship. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review. And until next time, take care.